Section 31 as a movie is all over the place. The idea of Section 31 was a great idea. It was an area of Starfleet that dealt with time travel and keeping timelines together, right? Something that the MCU is doing, right? And everything. But that's what the premise when it was introduced in Star Trek Enterprise was about. It was about time travel. This movie, Star Trek 31, is not about time travel. And it has nothing to do with Gene Roddenberry's premise for Star Trek, which is exploring new worlds. It has to do with Star Trek's mirror universe's empire and her emperor, which is the actress is Michelle Yeoh, and her character appeared in the last Star Trek show, Star Trek Discovery, and this story is about her and her empire and one of her servants who could have been the emperor, but instead she became the empress. That servant who he, the one who was supposed to become the emperor, became her servant and is now trying to hunt her down. She puts together a team of like a cast of characters, an android, a changeling, and it's not the same changeling from Deep Space Nine. It's not that type of changeling. It's a different type of changeling. And nobody's like a real character. That's another thing that I noticed. And it's just all over the place. And I guess they're being hunted down by this guy, and she's like in her own, I would call it a mining ship. And the movie has like 3 chapters, right? And very poorly filmed. Okay, that's the other thing. You're like, where is this story going? And the action is incoherent. Um, First of all, also the character of Michelle Yeoh has nothing to do with Star Trek or Starfleet, and with all the interesting aliens like Andorians, Klingons, Borg, that Section 31 would be looking after, right? Uh, this movie totally ignores all of that. And it's basically Michelle Yeoh's Guardians of the Galaxy. And uh, I gotta tell you that there was a scene in a cantina. For example, she has a ship that's like a bar, and you know how when you see past science fiction stuff, or past like Star Wars, the cantina scene, how you really feel like you're there and you're really interested in the background characters. So in her ship here, it's supposed to be like a club, like a lounge, and you're looking at the background characters. You're trying to see all the background characters. And it's really not interesting. You don't really feel like you're there. And you feel like everybody is just trying to go through the motions. Uh, it was really bad, but it's like Discovery. That's exactly how Star Trek Discovery was. And I know people who probably don't know Star Trek. They're like, "What is Star Trek Discovery?" Uh, it's a series. Like, what is Star Trek Enterprise? Yes, the ship is called Enterprise, but there was also a show called Enterprise that first introduced the idea of this movie, Section 31. So on that show, it was really cool. And then, you know, Hollywood basically took over, and the same people who were behind Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Picard. Look at Picard, how great, how fans loved Picard. And I'll give you a recent example of Strange New Worlds. Strange New Worlds is a good show. Star Trek Strange New Worlds is really good. So they know how to make good Star Trek. This is not good Star Trek. Alright? So they tried to do kind of like an Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12 type of thing, and I don't think it worked. Guardians of the Galaxy, Ocean's 11, I don't think it worked. And Michelle Yeoh's character, it's like, this is the character that you're gonna choose to make a spin-off on for Star Trek. It didn't work. It doesn't work. I think Elon Musk needs to buy Star Trek because the people at Paramount want to sell, and they don't know what to do with the franchise. They really don't know. You have to think about, Star Trek used to not only rule the toy shelves with Star Wars, okay? You used to have Star Wars in the 90s. It was like Power Rangers, Star Wars, and Star Trek. Star Trek used to rule the toy shelves. And that had to do a lot also with the movies. And who's going to sit down with their family to see Michelle Yeoh and her cast of characters that have nothing to do with the idea of exploring new worlds, nothing, the idea of Star Trek. But you know what families are watching is SpaceX putting those rockets in the sky. You know what families are watching is Elon Musk. And Elon Musk is always mentioning Starfleet, and I think that Elon Musk really, if you're watching this, Elon Musk, buy Star Trek. I really do think that Elon Musk needs to buy Star Trek, because I feel like the people who are just behind it, the producers, don't have a vision for this franchise. And you have to remember that marketing wise, Star Trek is $1 billion franchise. And Paramount has devalued it, but you have to understand that they used to have their own hotel, their own conventions. It's a global phenomenon. Star Trek is a global phenomenon. And from the 1960s all the way up until the end of Star Trek Enterprise, right? People were watching Star Trek from week to week, 20 episode seasons, and the series didn't lasted 7 seasons long. So I feel like the producers have been mishandling it. There's a lot more money to be made with Star Trek. I think somebody like Elon Musk needs to buy it, and the new episodes should premiere on X. But this movie is basically, you can tell out of all the ideas for a Section 31 movie, this is the last type of story you would expect. And that's not in a good way. That's like in a really bad way. You can tell Paramount just sold this movie off to any production company that they thought they could make their biggest return on. Here's the thing, look at how much Picard as a series made for Paramount. It's a lot more. Basically, Picard carried uh, Paramount as a streaming service. So, what my question is, why weren't they trying to repeat the success of Picard? Because I'm going to tell you something. I think that Strange New Worlds, I love Strange New Worlds, but I think that show suffers viewership because of how bad Section 31 is, because of how bad Star Trek Discovery is, and waiting 2 years between seasons for Strange New Worlds, that's a really bad idea. So, um, this movie, poorly made, to say the least. Poorly filmed, poorly made, poorly acted, poorly written, okay? Um, Nonsensical. It's a lot like Agatha, like Agatha Harkness. They basically put people in a room and they said, she's the villain, she's the hero, act like you're fighting. That's exactly, there isn't really a story really to be followed. And you think about the Star Trek series, the Star Trek stories, what were they about? Right? And they were about exploring new worlds, a group of people exploring new worlds. And the plot lines had to do with them meeting an alien race, and just exploring space, right? And what Star Trek Discovery was like so not anything Star Trek. It was like, oh my god, you could tell. And I feel like with this movie, it was just Chat GPT. What was this movie about? It was about Michelle Yeoh, and she's an empress, and it's about her, right? And how she basically owns a whole empire, okay? And all right, whatever. Out of all the things, you have species 8462, and I don't know. This was really bad.